So welcome wherever you are. My name is Professor Tim Campbell. I'm a visiting Professor of International Management at the University of Northampton. And I also look after locally the DBA program. When I say locally, for this intake that we run in the UAE, was taught in the UAE, but we get students from all around the GCC and Africa who come to it. So what I want to do today is this evening, is to spend about 20 minutes just going through a presentation about the key points about the program, and then at the end I'll answer some of the questions that you have. So let's get straight into the presentation. Before I talk about the DBA program, I'm just going to show you where Northampton and the university is, in case you haven't been there, which I doubt most of you have. So Northampton, as my big arrow points to there, is an old historic town. It's about an hour by train north of London. It appears many times throughout English history. And there in the town of Northampton, you will find the university itself. And it used to be just on the outskirts of the town, but it built a brand new campus right in the middle of town, which opened in 2018. So in fact, if I go back a couple of slides, you'll see another part of it there. So very impressive, brand new, technologically advanced campus that you'll find right in the middle of Northampton now. And I've just shown you that photograph there because in that building, the Senate building, on one of the floors, there's the postgraduate research students room, and you can see a bit of it in my photo on the right there. And that's where as DBA students, as doctorate students, if you ever visit the campus, there's always a place there for you to work and to have access to. So that's the town of Northampton. The university is right in the middle. The university itself, well, education in Northampton dates back an awfully long way, till about the 13th century. But the modern University of Northampton's origins began about 100 years ago, and it was back when it was a technical college. And it now has about 14,000 students and 1,500 staff. But that's all I'll say about the university itself, because you can go on the website and have a look at all about the university and its history and how big it is and everything like that. Because what we're here to talk about tonight, of course, is the DBA program. And that's what I'm going to talk about. So firstly, what is a Doctor of Business Administration? Breaking that term down, what is a doctorate? Well, doctorates are considered terminal degrees, or usually considered terminal degrees, which means it's the highest degree that you can attain. Generally speaking, it goes bachelor's, master's, then you move on to your doctorate. Now, there are such things as postdoctorate certificates and things and some types of courses, but generally speaking, that's the way it goes. Bachelor's, master's, then up to that doctorate or that terminal level of study. And at that doctorate level, we have two types of doctorates. One of them, and they have different audiences and different outcomes. One of them are called professional doctorates. And these are for people who work in a profession but want to study at doctorate level. So for example, if you feel ill and go and see your doctor, that person will have a professional doctorate, an MD, a doctorate, or usually have an MD, a doctorate of medicine. If you're an engineer, you can do a DEng, a doctorate of engineering. If you're in pharmacy, you can do a doctorate of pharmacy. For education professionals, you can do a doctorate in education. These are all professional doctorates, so they're for people who primarily work within a profession but want to study at doctorate level. And of course, the professional doctorate for business and management people is the DBA, the Doctorate of Business Administration. The other type of doctorate we have are what we call research doctorates. And the most well-known of these is a PhD, the Doctor of Philosophy. And these types of doctorate are primarily based on research itself. Can be done by anybody and basically any topic, but they'll be based on research rather than people that are primarily within a profession. So research doctorates are more so done by people who want to enter into universities, academic careers, or maybe government research places, that type of thing. So they're both academically equivalent. They're at exactly the same level, but they have different outcomes. DBAs or professional doctorates are more applied. PhDs can be purely theoretical. They don't need to have that type of application. So they're academically equivalent, just different audiences and different outcomes. But they are actually both research-based degrees. If you did a PhD in some business and management topic, you would do a big research project. If you do if you do the DBA, you will also do a big research doctorate. So they're actually quite similar, but as I say, they're different. The DBA is more applied and meant for professional people. And of course, they both confer upon the bearer the title of doctor. Once you complete a doctorate degree, you are entitled to use the title doctor. Just one final word on this difference between PhD and DBA, because it is important. This is a bit of a wordy slide, and it's just something I got from allbusinessschools.com, but I actually quite like it. I think it sums up the difference quite nicely. So I'll read it out. So it says, PhD programs in business focus intensively on preparing candidates to conduct highly specialized scholarly research. They focus on the development of new theory in management, economics, and related fields. Most PhD and business administration graduates lead to careers as university researchers and professors, or as senior researchers in business or government. The DBA programs focus on the application of theory rather than on the development of new theory. The Doctor of Business Administration, by virtue of the focus on the application of theory, has more practical applications in managerial settings than the PhD. So that's a nice way to think about it. But of course, it's not cut and dry. There are plenty of people who have PhDs who work in industry, and there are plenty of people who have DBAs who work as university lecturers and professors. So it's not a cut and dry rule, but that gives you an idea of the difference between the two. So what sort of things do DBA students study? These are a list of topics from our current students and some students who have finished. And they can be anything business and management. You know, it could be strategy, entrepreneurship, innovation, human resource management, organizational behavior, ethics, social responsibility, all sorts of things. Anything business and management. And these are some of the things that our students have done, or some of them still doing. Critical examination of a performance management system, leadership styles and employee performance, and assessment of corporate governance in the public sector, assessing the value chain and manufacturing business, reasons for investing in high-tech startups, resolving project conflicts, perceptions of luxury goods in the UAE, and knowledge transfer and management setting. So that's just a random selection that I've picked, but you can see they come from all different business and management subject areas, don't they? So really anything business and management is the possibility for a DBA topic. How it's taught. So we teach, and I'm very pleased to say that we are, after having to have a period of having virtual workshops, that we are now back to face-to-face workshops. And we actually have an intake, which will be our 14th intake, which starts next week. But that's all finished and people have been accepted and that's all closed now. So the next intake we'll be looking at is in May 2023. We have 2 intakes per year. Now that may seem like a long way away, but it's really not, because it takes a long time to develop your proposal and get all the documents together. So it's something you should be thinking about and planning for even right now is a good idea. So the next intake we're looking at will be the 15th, which starts in May 2023. And what you do, so for the first 2 years, you learn everything, you have taught modules where you learn everything you need to about research methods and research methodology and everything you need to move on to the second 2 years, which is your thesis stage. So those first 2 years, you have 4 modules. They're all 3-day taught face-to-face workshops, apart from the first one and the last one, which are 4 days, because they cover a little bit more. But basically, for example, you come to the first workshop, inductions, principles of research. You'll meet the tutor will fly in from the university into the UAE. You'll do 4 days face-to-face. And then after that, you'll use the university's virtual learning environment to carry on your studies and communicate with your professor and other people in your class and to do your assignments. Once that's done, about 3 months later, you'll be back for module number 2, where you'll be looking at advanced quantitative data analysis. Same thing, the professor will fly from Northampton. You'll have 3 days face-to-face with the tutor, and then you'll continue on using the virtual learning environment, hand in your assignments onto your next module. So that's how your first 2 years go. And then you get onto the thesis stage. Once you've passed all of that, you then get onto the thesis where you have a director of studies and 2 supervisors who will supervise and help you through the thesis stage, which we expect to be submitted within 2 years of starting the second stage. So it's what we call a 2+2 module, program rather. 2 years taught, 2 years thesis. The types of assessment that we have during the module stage, it depends on what the module is. There's all sorts of different things. It could be an essay, it could be a seminar presentation and debate, portfolio, research report, a reflector report. You also do another proposal, which in your final module, which then goes on and takes you to your thesis. And you also do a practice viva voce exam, which is an oral examination. And that's how your research thesis is actually assessed in the end. So in those taught modules, there's all sorts of different methods depending on the module. Your professor will tell you exactly what they want and what to expect. No examinations, of course, because they don't really fit with doctoral level studies. Examination is more about what you can remember, whereas we want you more so getting into the idea of starting to write and construct theses. Then when you get onto the thesis stage, you're going to put together a 40,000 word thesis, and then you'll have an oral examination held at the University of Northampton. The only time you need to actually go to the university is to have your thesis assessed. And there you'll sit in a room with an internal examiner, somebody from the university, and an external examiner who will be somebody from a different university, and you will defend your thesis in an oral session. Once that's done, it's finished and your doctorate's over. So that's assessment. Lots and lots of support on the program. There's the international DBA program leader who you'll meet at the application stage. You'll meet that person at the interviews. Every module has its own professor, as you would expect. When you get to the thesis stage, as I mentioned, there's a director of study and two research supervisors. There's administration. All of the university's administration, of course, is available to you. And if you have problems locally, we can help point you in the right direction. The virtual learning environment that the university uses is called NILE, Northampton Integrated Learning Environment. And every module that you study will have one of these sites where your professors will post whatever they need to, readings, videos, links, whatever they think is useful to you, they'll post on that site. And it's also where you will submit your assignments, get your results, do all that type of thing. And the university also has a very extensive online library, which will have everything you need to complete your studies. And it's also worth noting as well that the university has the graduate school. Now, the graduate school is for all of the postgraduate researchers in the university. So not just for DBA students, but for people in all of the other different schools of the university as well. And this is very useful because this graduate school, as it says here, it's a university-wide framework for training, support, career preparation and administration to help you throughout your postgraduate research degree and early research career to achieve your potential. So it has a whole lot of other resources that you can tap into whenever you want to. For example, it has an extensive program of face-to-face and online training courses that if you need extra support, you can tap into these courses. For example, you can do how to do a literature review or research ethics, or if you need more about SPSS, which is a tool we use for quantitative analysis, or in vivo, which is a tool we use for qualitative analysis, and many, many more. If you feel like you need a little bit extra training in these things, the graduate school runs a whole program of these types of courses all the way through the year. So remember, this is all extra to the DBA program. You just tap into it if you need it. Everything is actually in the program itself, but if you need a bit more, the graduate school's always there. Right, let's get on to entry requirements. Fairly standard. You need a master's degree in a business-related subject completed within the last 10 years, or at least ideally completed within the last 10 years. Have a minimum of 5 years work experience, at least some of which is at senior level, and be employed in a leadership management role capable of supporting the learning outcomes. When you apply, these are the documents that you'll need. The CV, a personal statement, which is basically where you write why you want to do a DBA, what's your motivation for doing it, why do you want to do a DBA and not a PhD, do you have the time to do it, these sorts of things that you need to write about. You'll have 2 references, degree certificates and transcripts. These are fairly standard. and evidence of an English language ability if you're asked. If your master's was in English, for example, then you're not going to be asked. But just if you were asked, you may need to do an English language test. Once you submit those, plus your research proposal, which I'll talk more about in a minute, which is about 1,000 words, which just outlines to the admissions team at the university what you want to study. You submit all those. If that goes well, you'll be invited for an interview. And the interview will be with 2 people, usually the DBA program leader, then somebody else. And then they're going to go through in the interview. They're going to ask you about all of these application documents, but they'll particularly focus on that proposal. And they'll ask you what you want to do, why you want to do it, and basically how you're going to do it. So let me just tell you a bit more about that, because it is an important part of the procedure. So the research proposal is required for 3 main reasons. We want to be able to assess whether the applicant is capable of studying at doctoral level. And the doctoral level is a big step up from masters. It's a long journey. It takes a lot of resources in terms of time, in terms of juggling your work and your family and all of these things. So right at the admissions stage, the team wants to know, can the applicant do they have the best chance of successfully completing the program? The second thing we want to find out from a proposal, does the proposed research fit with the nature of a DBA? And at the start, I mentioned how the DBA should have an actual practical application. It needs to be something useful, well, not useful, but practical that comes out of it, which we hope will be useful. And does the university have an appropriate supervisor? Now, the university has all the major areas of management can be supervised: finance, accounting, HRM, OB, innovation, etc., etc. But if you're doing something very, very niche in your proposal, it's possible we don't have somebody who has enough expertise to be able to actually supervise. Now, it doesn't happen very often, but just make sure with your initial proposal that it's not something very specialized that would be very difficult to find somebody to supervise. And what do the team look for in a proposal? Can it make a practical contribution to business and management? Can the applicant reference using the Harvard method? Can they write a brief literature review and cite some authors in the field? Do they have a basic understanding of research methods? And the good news is anyone who's studied at master's level should already have these skills and should be able to put together this initial proposal. Okay, just a few more things before I get on to the questions. Program fees, please have a look at the Stafford Global website for the current fees, because they can change intake by intake, so I want to make sure you have the most current fees. When you do see it, I'm sure you'll see it that for a doctorate level program that is taught with fly-in faculty from the university, it is very reasonable. The last few things from me: why you should do a DBA at Northampton, because it's an investment in your future, both in academic and professional fields. It's the highest qualification in business and management. You will contribute to business and management practice. It would be expected that your thesis will be published in an academic journal. There's international and local supervision and support, and workshops from leading international faculty. So in a nutshell, completion of the Northampton DBA will set you apart as an expert able to lead and manage at the highest levels. You'll have made a unique contribution to your field and developed outstanding analytical, critical, creative, and reflective skills so needed in today's business world. Completing a doctorate is a journey that not many people ever embark upon, and very few people actually complete. So when you do actually complete that journey and have a doctorate, it really does show to people that you are an expert in your field, and it moves you into senior roles in organization, board level, consultancy, management training, lecturing, all sorts of different ways as well. So that's why I say it really is an investment in yourself. Okay, I think I've done, that's my presentation, just of the key bits. And I'm right on time, 20 minutes. So the best way to have a look at your questions is you just type any questions in that question box. I'm going to bring them up and see what we've got. I'll read them out as I go. Right, so I've got quite a few questions here, so let me make my way through them. So will I be able to meet my supervisor face to face? So that's when you get to the thesis stage, the last 2 years. Potentially, your Director of Studies and your first supervisor will both be from the University of Northampton. So if you were to go to the university, there will be no problem meeting them face to face. Your second supervisor will come from a different university, but somebody who has particular local knowledge, we call it. It doesn't mean they live locally, but it means they'll have knowledge of your context. So if you're studying something here in the GCC, we'll look for second supervisors who have particular knowledge of the GCC context. So they're probably still going to be in a UK university, a different one, but they'll have particular knowledge of where you're deciding to do your research. So will you be able to meet your supervisor face to face? Yes, potentially. Certainly the your Director of Studies rather, and your first supervisor, potentially your second supervisor. But I always say it's actually not particularly necessary. You know, you don't need to travel to the UK just to meet a supervisor. When you have meetings with your supervisory team, we use simply Teams or Zoom or something, or we use the university's Collaborate with the university's tool that they use for teaching and meetings, and it works just as well. So short answer to that is yes, you can if you wanted to see them in Northampton, but it's not necessary. You can get just as much done having a virtual meeting. How do I prepare for my interview with the academic panel? Yeah, so as I mentioned, this is very important to prepare for the interview, because this is where a lot of our applicants do end up getting rejected because they simply don't know their research proposal well enough, or they haven't explained that this really is a research gap, and and that it is a need of research. So when you prepare for your interview, they will ask about they can ask about any of your application documents, but most of it will be about that research proposal. So you really need to know it well. You need to know when you've written it that there is a clear gap there, and you can explain it. And you can also explain how you're going to go about researching this in a way that is going to be achievable and doable with the DBA program. I started a DBA at another institution and completed 2 modules. Do you accept exemptions for the program? Not for this DBA program, because the Doctor of Business Administrations at different universities can be quite different. So even though you've studied 2 modules, they may not map well onto our DBA program. And also this DBA program, each module builds upon the other. So we want everybody to be in the same boat. So we need you all to start at the same point. Can the program be completed in 2 to 3 years? No, you'll need the full 4 years. Certainly the first 2 years, they're timetabled, so you can't do that any faster. When you got to the thesis stage, theoretically, you could do it faster than the 2 years if you really wanted to, although you wouldn't be able to, although by the time you submitted and then did your Viva and everything, it'd probably take you up to the 2 years anyway. But there wouldn't be any particular reason for doing that. The key thing is to make sure you pass and to do the best you can. So think about it as a 4-year program. I completed my master's degree in engineering. Will I still be accepted? You'd need to talk to your consultant at Stafford about that. Potentially, if you can show that you have, you've done other business and management courses, perhaps, or training or something like that, it's possible. But you would need to look at each case further about that. And if your master's degree was almost 16 years ago, so I mentioned that ideally it should be in the last 10 years that you did your master's degree. If it was longer ago than that, then as long as you can show that you've been doing some training courses or something to keep your knowledge up to date, then it should be okay. I've been advised that workshops are currently face-to-face. What happens if I miss a session? These workshops, they are compulsory. You do need to attend because they're such an integral part of the program. That said, if something happened and you missed a workshop for illness, for example, or something happened and you just couldn't make it, then you would need to work with your tutor to try and catch up as best you can. But think about that, these are integral to the program, and you do need to make these workshops. So what is the duration of each module? If your academic consultant, Stafford, has probably given you the timetable by now, so you'll be able to see when the module is, when you hand in your assignment, and then when you start your next module. So they're about 3 months apart, 3 or 4 months apart, depending on the module. Will the degree state online distance learning? Nope, absolutely not. Remember, this is not an online program. This is a taught program, taught by the professors from Northampton. So it certainly will not state that. It is a part-time taught program. Can I change my research topic during my studies? Yes, you can. So you could do your initial proposal, then once you actually get into the modules and learn more about research and research methods, you might think your topic doesn't fit very well, so you can change. What I would say is almost every student actually will not do exactly what they did when they initially proposed. The proposal will evolve and develop over that first 2 years. And at the end of that first 2 years, you actually come up with another proposal of 2,500 words that takes you onto the thesis. Now that's the one you are expected to carry on with, but your initial proposal, no, you may well, most people don't change topics. They usually do the similar sort of topic, but it definitely changes over the course of the 2 years. But if you really thought the topic is completely wrong and you wanted to change to something completely different, yeah, then you would have to talk to your professors and they would discuss that with you. If I fail the interview stage, what will happen to my application? Can I apply again? Yeah, most of the time people do get given the opportunity to work on their proposal, go back to it, and then apply again. But that's up to the admissions team at the university. Couple more questions. You mentioned you must be employed in a management and leadership role for you to qualify. What happens if you're self-employed as a business consultant? Okay, no, well, that will be fine if you're self-employed as a consultant or something, as long as you have senior level experience. And we have consultants certainly on the program, people who have also those who have jobs and do a bit of consulting as well. Yeah, so that management or leadership role, it could well be you're running your own business. You could be an entrepreneur, or as you say, self-employed as a business consultant, that's fine. But as long as you have some senior level experience, that's the key thing. And my last question from Nakidi. I take it that the fees do not include traveling costs to the UK. They don't. If you don't already, not to the UK. So Nakidi, remember the workshops in the UAE and the United Arab Emirates. So if you don't already live here, there will be traveling costs to get here for the workshops. But they're about the only extra costs that you will need to do. Everything else within the DBA is included. The only thing is, if you don't live here in the UAE, you will need to cover those travel costs, the flights and accommodation to get here. Remember, the UAE, not the UK. All right, I think that's it. All my questions done. If you do have any questions that come to me, oh, what's in the slideshow? There we go. If there is anything that comes to you later anyway, just feel free to get in touch with me. They're my details. And I hope that has answered some of you, at least most of your questions, I hope. And I really do hope that come May that I'll be able to see you in person, face to face at the workshop in the UAE. So any questions that come to you, let me know. But for now, thanks for listening. Bye for now. Bye-bye.